What's happening, guys? Hope you guys are well. Hope you guys are having a great one. So this is going to be the start of something new for me, something that I'm very passionate about, something that I've been had a feeling in my heart to share with you guys for weeks now, if I'm honest. Finally, after a lot of prayer, after a lot of obviously, God just keep pushing this. I'm acting to be obedient. I've just felt that I needed to, share my journey with you guys more, my relationship with God, kind of like throughout my entire life from childhood all the way up until now. Obviously it is, something that's always progressing. It's something that is always developing. It's, something that's got so many levels. It is ridiculous. Now even doing this testimony and obviously writing it, trying to prepare for it, it's things that I didn't even realize that I had forgotten, or the traumatic events that I kind of like blocked out of my mind, and ways that God showed up, and He was there. His footprint was there from the very beginning, but I was so blinded to all of these things through my own obviously pride and selfishness and self-righteousness, and He's just, His love is just so beautiful, and that's the story that I want to share with you guys. But I feel the best way for me to do it is through a series called, What I've Come to Learn About Jesus. That's what I'm going to be calling this video series, and it's just going to be me talking about faith, my personal experience. I'm not in any way, shape, or form declaring that I know, everything about God, not even close, or the relationship with Jesus and God, and how to live your life in any way, shape, or form. I am of sin. I will always be of sin. I am not, in any way, shape, or form a perfect human being. None of us are, and that once again is the entire point of this. I want to create this specific, obviously, video of my testimony. That's probably going to be 2 videos long, because it is so long trying to obviously talk about your life, from childhood all the way down to here, and the relationship and the goodness of God in just a 15-minute video. So it's probably going to stretch over 2 videos. Maybe I can fit it in, we don't know. But, it is, I think it's the best way to create context, and it's the best way for you guys to really relate to me. The things that we're going to be talking about is things that, maybe a few people, different people that, came and gone through my life knew at different stages, but no one really knows all of this. What I'm saying? I don't even think Rachel knows, everything that I'm going to be speaking about now. I didn't even realize and remember half of the things, that I'm going to be speaking about until I had to sit down, reflect, and, write this. And things just came up, and I think it's very important to share. So once again, this is going to be obviously a vulnerable space. It's going to be me being real. It's going to be raw. Like I mentioned, this is not a place for judgment. What I'm saying? I'm not here to condemn you or judge over your life, and I don't obviously appreciate if anyone is going to be doing that with me. If we all just took where we are right now, we stripped off all of our pride, we are all lost. We are all broken, and this journey to truth and this relationship with Jesus and God, and obviously life is it's so deep. It's always progressing, and it's got so many levels. But I am just so grateful that I am where I am today. I've got a very long way to go, I can guarantee you that. But I've come such a far way, and I need to talk about those things that I didn't realize, that no one really showed me, or I didn't really care to obviously listen when people try to guide me. And now looking back, I see the patterns of my life. I see where I made the mistakes. I see where I was ignorant, and I turned my back to, obviously the opportunities that I had throughout my life, and the beautiful people that wanted to, help me through certain stages of my life. And, it is important to someone, and hopefully I can be there to someone, to maybe show you, obviously just to kind of like open your heart to something, maybe just to have a different perspective to something, maybe just to, kind of like open up your mind and your view and your heart to something different, and maybe it's a space that you are struggling with, and a mistake that I made and learned from, and through Jesus overcame, could be something that you might be struggling with, or you might struggle with in the future and could avoid. So I just think it is so important to share this. Obviously it is a very powerful thing to speak about your flaws, your downfalls, the bad times, the worst times, and then speak about God's glory. But I'm just grateful that I'm in a place where I feel confident talking about this, and obviously I feel at peace and I feel in a good space with my relationship with God. And I know this is needed, what I'm saying? So hopefully this is appreciated. Hopefully this speaks to someone. Hopefully this, relates to someone. Hopefully this inspires someone. And I just want to open it up. If you guys want to talk about anything, this is going to be a continuous thing. This is going to be opening up that conversation. This is going to be starting that conversation. This isn't trying to convince anyone of anything. This is purely giving you guys an insight of my life, and hopefully, like I said, it would start that conversation. It would start, that thought process. It would, point you to seeking the truth for yourself, and obviously, that's what all of this is about. All right, guys. So I'm going to start with, obviously there's so much to talk about. There's going to be so many levels to this. And as the series goes on and we obviously dive into certain videos, we're going to obviously go deeper into specific times, situations, phases, throughout my life, and then speak into that, and everything that I've learned and come to know about Jesus in those specific scenarios. So this is just going to be an overview. I've tried to refine it and bring it down because it was pages and pages and pages, and there's just so much, and I just think it's going to be so overwhelming if we just talk about it my whole life. And so I'm going to try and do it in phases. All right, so bear with me. I'm obviously going to share my heart with you guys, share my life with you guys, obviously be real, be raw, and then we'll take it from there. All right, so we're going to start obviously with my childhood, and just basically try and speak about the phases of my life where I didn't really know God, to through the period where I kind of got to know a little bit more of God, and to a point in the events where I actually got saved, to a very lost period after that, obviously salvation, and now becoming a believer, and obviously a Christ follower, and the delusion that I lived with for a very long time, thinking, I was this, a certain, type of person, and, not really being, fully aware of, the enemy in my life in certain situations, and being completely blinded to certain things, and now coming to a point where I am aware of those things, and obviously still battling through it, and still needing to improve, and still obviously living my life and progressing, because it's always progressing journey, but that's kind of where this is going, and hopefully those different phases will bring us to where I am now, my struggles that I'm having now, the challenge that I have now, but also the lessons that I've learned, and the beautiful way God works in your life, and hopefully this will inspire you guys. All right, so talking about my childhood, so I grew up in obviously a very loving home. Parents were obviously very, very amazing, caring, supportive. They did everything for us. I had a great childhood, can never ever complain about my upbringing. Church-wise, obviously we were, our parents are Christians, church people. They go to the NG Kerk, Dutch Reformed, and that's kind of where my journey of faith started. I knew about God, I was aware of God, I did Sunday school on a weekly basis. Didn't really understand God, didn't really have a relationship with God in any way, shape or form. I think, like most kids, you go through that phase where, or like a long period of my life, actually where I had an understanding of God, being a God that blesses you when you're good, and God punishing you when you are bad. So you kind of like always, kind of will warn, like, don't do bad things because you're going to get punished, or, obviously do good things because you're going to get blessed. And wherever that message came from, from television, friends, family members, the church, whatever, that was kind of like in the back of my mind. But it was never like a priority. It was never like a passion. It was never like anything. And as soon as I had the opportunity not to go to church, I stopped going to church because I couldn't really relate, in any way, shape or form. Rugby was my life. I was a big sportsman. Rugby was my life's passion. Played club rugby from a very young age up until, obviously high school. After high school, got obviously scouted to go to England after obviously high school. Played, National One for a team in England. Played England counties and captained England counties. Rugby was my everything. I was in a relationship throughout my whole high school career. We did the odd, obviously partying, it's rugby, it's high school rugby, that's kind of like where I got involved with some weekend drinking and some partying, but nothing heavy, nothing obviously crazy in any way, shape or form. But rugby tours, that rugby lifestyle, it's drinking, it's partying, it's, obviously a lot of discipline, but rugby was my life. Spent 2 years in England and had to come back after my 2-year contract for obviously like a summer or whatever year in South Africa. Battled really badly with a injury. Obviously tried to play some rugby here in Durban. Played for Harlequins first team, played for Collegians first team for a while, but always really battled with my calves, and it found out that I had compartment syndrome. Obviously. It ended my rugby career, after, finding out that. They did test, obviously, measured the mercury level in my blood, and it was super high. They had to obviously operate bilaterally. All 4 quadrants had to get operated on. And that was it. And, 20 years of, dreaming to be a rugby, kind of like star one day. And that's kind of like where my life was leading. Everything was stripped away from me in that instance, in that phase of my life. And I think that's the very first time in my life, even though I didn't have a tight relationship with God, like I was living for God, or living cautious of whatever was going on in my life, I fought with God. I was angry at God. I was like, how can you do this? I'm saying, like, I'm not a malicious person, I'm not a bad person, I don't like I was a good guy, in my eyes, and like, I was really loved and was passionate about it, and, it got stripped away. And as we do as humans, we blame every bad event on God, and, which is completely, the worst thing that you can do, and completely backwards. But that is how the enemy obviously manipulates us and, steals from us, and, make us doubt God and turn that way, from him. And that's kind of like when I was firstly in like a depression state in my life. My brother was still obviously overseas in England. Me and my brother lived completely separate lives for some reason. He was a top bodybuilder. I wasn't even aware of it. I was so into my own life, into my own rugby, into my own, kind of like, world. He was obviously doing, obviously big things overseas in London, obviously doing bodybuilding there. And, I didn't really have a relationship with him. We weren't close in any way, shape or form. Obviously we were brothers, we had love for each other, but we weren't close. We couldn't relate. He was a bodybuilder, I wasn't into bodybuilding. I didn't even know what gym was. I just played rugby off of, natural talent and stuff like that. Anyways, I had to end up coming home. And I think a few months later, he came home from England as well. And I think he just found me in that depressed state, and I was just not in a good space. I couldn't go back, obviously, to England. So I had to stay here and obviously try and, figure myself out here. Obviously started studying marketing. My brother came back, saw me in a depressed state, and then, said, listen, let's get you into the gym. Let's obviously, get you, your fire back. Let's get you into another hobby. He got rugby injury and got into the gym. Maybe it will, be the same for me. I'm saying? At the end of the day, we've got competitive spirits. And we love pushing ourselves, and obviously have that athlete at heart kind of like mentality. And he got me into the gym, and I fell in love with it. And looking back now, my brother has always been that positive influence in my life, even back then when we weren't close in any ways, you know what I'm saying? And, I think that was the first kind of like, real influence in a positive way towards, the awareness of God. And, kind of like just, I don't think my brother was deep into his faith then, obviously recalling back. I'm trying to remember all of these dates. I'm trying to remember all of these timelines. So forgive me if I'm wrong with any of this. I'm just trying to obviously, go on whatever best my memory is. So I stand corrected with all of these phases, everyone else's obviously testimonies and phases with God and their lives. But, he got me into the gym. I fell in love with it. I started doing obviously personal training, studying for it part-time, got my, qualifications, started obviously personal training, found a new love for fitness, started competing, did pretty well, obviously turned pro fitness model. I did bodybuilding for, a few years, won a few SA champs, a few consecutive years, and it was like my life. It was, my everything. And always had my brother there now, because now we are close. He was coaching me, and we found that bond again. And he was really that obviously mentor for me growing up and stuff like that. That went on for about 3 or 4 years. I was in another relationship. So throughout my school years, I was in a long relationship. 3-4 years after school, coming back from England, I was in a long relationship for 3-4 years. So I never had that kind of like partying lifestyle really as a part of me in those early years. And never kind of like had women on my mind or anything, because I was in steady relationships and stuff like that. So there was I probably think about 2010. Now I've won, obviously, I was a fitness athlete. I won obviously 2 years SA champ bodybuilding and stuff like that. I was pretty, obviously, into the gym thing, obviously well built, etc. And I don't know what happened, but I don't know where that turnaround in my life came, but I think it was my relationship started getting bad. And kind of like it was towards the end of the relationship, like kind of like when you've been thinking for months and months and months trying to break up with someone, and obviously kind of like both on very different ends of the scales. And this is when sin started coming into my life. I think I was unfaithful for the first and only time in my entire life with this person over the last few weeks of our relationship. And for some reason I had a rugby injury as well, a training injury as well, and I hurt my shoulder, and I was on hectic medication, and for some reason I had like Schedule 7 meds, and I took like strong painkillers with it as well, and that combination didn't mix well. Thinned my blood. I had a mild stroke. They took me to the hospital. I stayed in the hospital for like 2 weeks. During that period, it came out that my old girlfriend and the new girlfriend, or the person that I was messing around with, kind of both were worried about me, both were asking questions about me, both ended up finding out about each other. And kind of like that's also during that time period that I met the wrong crowd. You know what I'm saying? I ended up competing 2 weeks later, won the show, don't know how. After being in hospital for 2 weeks, but thereafter, kind of like I was really over the whole competing thing, being in hospital, going through all of that stuff, and now kind of like had this jolling mentality, and I think I was just very, very deep rooted in my sin, that phase of my life, and that's where it really opened the doors for me. If I had to look back, started partying, started going out all the time, obviously, I'd always try to fit in, I'm saying rugby was my thing, bodybuilding was my thing, obviously, at that time, obviously 2-3 years after into the personal training thing, my business took off. We grew very quickly, obviously we got very successful very quickly, obviously a lot of money pushing through the business, and I was living the life in that sense and stuff like that, you know what I mean? I don't feel in my soul I was being a bad person. I was never a malicious person. I was never horrible to people in any way, shape or form, but I wasn't living an honest life, if you had to now reflect back on it. Anyways, so got into the whole clubbing thing, drinking on the weekends, lived for the weekends, what I'm saying, would work hard during the day, and then, go out and, take drugs and, got, wrapped into that world, what I'm saying, pills, ecstasy, as a, just a casual weekend thing. Started obviously innocent, what I'm saying, trying it for the first time, and I was 22, 23, first time being really exposed to all of this. My whole England, obviously, life when I was in England, I didn't even understand drugs or anything like that. I wasn't even, aware of it. I went to Pasha one night, and the whole club was, selling water the whole night. And I was like, why is there no booze in this club? What I'm saying? I was so oblivious to drugs and stuff like that then. But, just met the wrong people, and just got involved with the wrong things, man. And, drugs became the thing. It became a weekend thing. It became an every weekend thing. With money and obviously having some status, you started knowing the club owners and, all of these things. And then it started becoming harder drugs, and from, obviously, pills, it went to, obviously cocaine and, all of these, crazy party drugs, that just, kind of like makes you feel secure and confident and all of these things, what I'm saying, just chasing the wrong things, just always having that void, not really know how to fill it, feeling, depressed afterwards, feeling, worthless afterwards, feeling like, that like your life doesn't matter afterwards, what I'm saying, that drop afterwards, it's the worst feeling in the world. But then, Tuesday, Wednesday comes and that fades away, and then you're back at work and you're doing good things with people and you're living this double honest life, and then it's like, I'm fine again, what I'm saying, let the weekend come, and then, you forget about all of that, and it's that cycle, and there's, I never really had anyone around me that was really there to kind of like guide me in the right direction. My brother was that person for me my entire life, but had like shutters on, and for some reason, it's like no matter how much he tried to talk to me, no matter how much he tried to lead me, no matter how much, obviously he tried to, obviously guide me in the right direction, it just didn't take. And I feel for me, I hit a rock bottom. Some bad things happened with drugs, and we'll get into all of this obviously throughout the video series. And I got involved with a very, very toxic relationship, very passionate, very toxic, very, very traumatizing relationship, and like that ended obviously in a terrible way, and stretched on for a very long period. And I just feel that was the biggest, obviously phase of my life where it's just like I just was completely lost. I was completely all over the place. Even like I said, even though I felt I was a good person, even though I was good to people, I was serving people, we were doing great things. We obviously had a great, obviously thriving business. I was, doing charity work. I was, obviously feeding the poor, was doing all of these things during the week, but then weekends came and it was, kind of like that void just took over, what I'm saying, that, living to please people, that living for that validation, feeding off of, people praising you because you're successful, or you big, or, you doing good things, or you moving with the right, right people, and, all of those things that are just like of this world that is just, so false, and we put our identity in all of that. And that was just that phase that I just got sucked into that, and I hit a rock bottom, and I called it. I was like, oh my God, my life cannot go on like this. Thankfully, during that period, things, God was moving, in miraculous ways in my brother. He was, being healed. He, after injuries, I saw him go overseas and, win a pro show. I saw his, the birth of his son, and I saw the transformation, the spiritual transformation in my brother, the person he was, the character he was, and how he changed, and how he started living for people, and how he started, you're completely dying to his old self, and the sacrifices he started making, the way he loved people. And like that, to me, seeing that example, seeing someone change and transform, completely made me curious, what I'm saying. And I was like, wow, what I'm saying, there's something here, what I mean, maybe I should start listening. I was seeking the truth. At the end of the day, I didn't care, if there was God or this or whatever. I just wanted the truth about life. I just wanted to know what is the right thing to do, how do I fill this void. I was always longing for love, and I think now deep down inside, that was always the enemy's way of moving in my life, because that's where I made those, crucial mistakes, in my life, through obviously wanting that validation, wanting love, wanting obviously that type of thing. No matter what money I had, no matter what success I had, earlier in my career and stuff like that, and what I looked like, I was ripped, I was big, I was, all of these things that, so important to so many of us, but it was nothing, what I'm saying? Like, it was just a very lost period in my life. And there was a turnaround moment, thank you, Jesus. And I started seeking God a little bit more, started going to church, obviously starting hanging around, some, new people, new friends. But it didn't just change like that. It was like, it still didn't change for years, in massive, life turnaround ways. It was just like, I got to a point where I wanted to know Jesus. I saw his goodness. I saw what he did in my brother's life. That was enough for me to be curious and, obviously go to church and seek God and start praying and, kind of like, going on my Bible app and, going into the scriptures and trying to make meaning out of it and, watching, obviously spiritual leaders and pastors and, all of these people became a part of my life. A few months went by, I got saved, I got into a new relationship. It's a relationship that saved me out of a very, very dark place out of my life, and it was a phase, obviously that, I had to go through to kind of like get my head out of it, because I was in a very bad state. It was, obviously, even though I was on this journey with God and I got saved and stuff like that, I still had this longing, and, my past was just dragging me back. I'm saying? The people were just dragging me back. So I think the relationship came at a good point. It wasn't obviously, a lasting relationship. It lasted for about 2 years, good relationship, but it never obviously, it never saw that relationship obviously moving anywhere further, marriage wise or anything like that, and just completely different beliefs within morals and kind of like goals in the relationship that ended, and once again I took that after that relationship, kind of like it kind of like opened up the door for the enemy again, because I think throughout my entire life, no matter how much closer I drew to God, no matter how much I was living more, a godly life, no matter how much more I was serving people and speaking life and hope and love into other people's life, and obviously showing them, God's, goodness and stuff like that, I was still longing for, that one thing, for that love. And, then my mind didn't understand that one thing, that obviously longing for, that void was God. So even though I was saved, I don't feel I was fully living in that, salvation. What I'm saying? I still didn't know really what was sin and what wasn't. I wasn't aware of spiritual warfare in any way, shape or form. I still had that mindset of, I need to live, God will bless me. I need to obviously do good things, otherwise God will punish me. You get what I'm trying to say? Even though I was saved, and even though I made that vow to give my life to Jesus, I still lived that lukewarm, Christian life for so many years, tiptoeing. Is this sin? Is this sin? Maybe I can do that. I'm saying? I'm a good person. I'm comparing myself to all of the other people in the world, and these people are malicious. They're fighting. They, hurtful. They sleeping around. They're doing all of these things. I'm not that person. What I'm saying? So trying to justify, my sins, and trying to think that I'm a godly person, went through a big phase of my life. What I'm saying? Because I was this good person, did all of this, charity work and all of these things that during the week, and then weekend came and it was that same longing. Drugs was obviously not a part of the life anymore, but now it became about chasing after love. What I'm saying? Women, and trying to find my missing piece in someone else. And that obviously I didn't get into any like real relationships or anything like that, but I obviously did manipulated, try to get with women, obviously slept around. It was a phase of my life that, was completely, it was just a strange phase, you know what I'm saying? Once again, in my heart, I didn't feel I was a bad person. In my heart, I was like, I'm honest with these women. Like, this is just how, but my heart was so hard. There was just an emptiness. And I think, without even realizing, I was hurting all of these people, you know what I'm saying? And trying to justify it in my own life. And at the same time, seeking God as hard as I can at the time and thinking that's how it's meant to be done. It's crazy. It's crazy how, all of this happens, and, obviously the phases and the levels, and even when you think you are, there, or, they're just about that, you are so blinded to your own sin. You are so blinded to your own self-righteousness. You are so blinded to your own pride. And that's just where the enemy wants you. You know what I'm saying? I mean, like, when you still live in that filth and that guilt and that shame, and you don't really fully understand the work of Jesus Christ on the cross, and you living in that, and you might be seeking him, you know what I'm saying, but it's not enough for you to act out, for you to live that real Christian life, for you to live and strive to live and be like Jesus, for you to turn completely from your sin, because you understand the doors the sin opens, not because God's going to punish you, but because when we sin, it opens up that door for that enemy to obviously work in your life, for you to manipulate, to steal, kill, and destroy your entire being. And, I didn't understand all of these things. So for the longest period of time, I went through that. And I went through a phase after my last relationship, probably for like a year. And it was strange how it happened. Straight after the relationship, she ended up with a friend of mine. I ended up doing a silly thing over a weekend at a show. And it was the first time in my life, actually second time in my life, that I really experienced soul ties and, different characteristics and emotions and, kind of like things, that I lived through and had to go for deliverance from that. And we'll get into all of that, because that is so, so, so real. And, I went through like a 6-month phase where I made a vow to God. Because I was seeking God. I was still going to church, obviously going to church, doing my thing on the weekend. But I made a deal with God, and I was like, God, I'm gonna not be with anyone for 6 months, but I need you to bring my wife through this. I'm gonna, stay away. I'm not gonna, because I kind of was aware of where my weaknesses was, but I still didn't have that strength to do it. You know what I'm saying? So 6 months went by, and I didn't meet the person, of my dreams in any way, shape, or form. And then I was just like, I'm over it. You know what I'm saying? If I go out, if someone wants to obviously hook up, if someone wants to obviously get with me, I'm perfectly fine. You know what I'm saying? I know I'm not, a bad person. I'm not, hurting anyone. I'm not going out and, cheating on anyone and their relationships and stuff like that. In my mind, I still believed I was being a decent person by living a decent life throughout the day. And then on the weekends, just like, whatever came, let's drink, let's sin, let's do whatever. If I get, with someone for 2 weeks, I would never do that, the one night stand thing. That was never like my vibe. But I would get into these short little relationship with girls, because I really felt this was the person I'm going to be with. And then, obviously we would be intimate in, sexual ways, and it would, crumble, and it would, there would be no substance, and it would end, and then it would be into the next one. And it was obviously, these short little, obviously, relationships with people over a course of a few months. And then about 6 months of that, and just like going out and just being empty and all over the place. My brother, few months before, he always tried to put godly advice in my life, and he says, listen, if you want a wife, you need to start praying for it, man. You need to write it down. You need to pray for your dream wife, her characteristics, her features, her personality, her everything. Ask God. God's a good God. He'll give it to you. You know what I'm saying? You just got to believe it. You got to pray for it. And then you got to start dating. My brother didn't obviously know this life I was living, but he was saying, like, let's go dating. My obviously silly mind was saying, okay, let's date. And if it, ends up in obviously hooking up and, doing all of these things, that's fine. And that's kind of like how I went about it. And, just the wrong way, hey? You know what I'm saying? At the end of the day, we need to realize what our sin does. We need to realize how, sex is not evil. Sex is from God. Sex, is a God-given gift. But outside the covenant, outside of marriage, outside of, that promise and the container that it's meant to be in, it is the biggest open door for the devil to work into your life. And I was so blinded to this for the longest period of my life. And even now, even moving forward, from this, obviously, time. I met Rachel. Thank you, Jesus. The second that woman walked into, my life, I knew my life changed. I was still kind of not like dating girls, but I was kind of still talking to girls and stuff like that. And that feeling of wanting to, talk to anyone and be involved with anyone dropped that second that woman walked into my gym, and I just knew my life was going to change. She was in a relationship. She wanted me to coach her, and things obviously developed there. And I prayed, and I knew she was the one. I knew Rachel was the one when she walked in. I say this to her all the time because I knew my heart changed when she walked into my life. And, I had a good relationship with God. I was going to church, and her mom wanted her to go to church. So in my back of my mind, I was like, I'm going to take her to church. I'm going to make this girl my girlfriend. You know what I'm saying? And found out she was obviously, in a kind of in a rocky relationship that ended. Obviously, we ended up obviously getting together, and it started hot, it started heavy. We fell in love really quickly, very passionate. Within a few weeks, she had some living arrangements and some work things that didn't work out. I got her to obviously move in with me. I got her to work for me. And our relationship started, obviously strong, obviously passionate. We were sexually active for the first few months of our relationship, because I feel that was the only way I knew how to love. That's the only way she knew how to love. That's what we thought we needed to do in this relationship to keep it going. And then obviously, she got really into, her journey of faith. And, I saw this as an amazing opportunity. I always longed when I sat at church. I used to cry myself to sleep. You guys don't even understand, longing for love. And when I used to be in the church, I used to, see people worship. And I used to have tears in my eyes seeing couples in front of me raising their hands, praying, to God and worshiping. And I was just like, I want that in my life. So Rachel got into it. And her faith journey started. And then Bethel came to SA, and I bought her tickets, surprised her, and I said, listen, I'm taking you to a worship concert. Bethel, obviously I was big into their music and stuff like that, them Elevation, obviously Hillsong and stuff like that. So I took her. I can't remember what church it was. I think it was City Hill, obviously in Durban, and we went there, and it's the first time I remember and saw the presence of God, and Rachel experienced the presence of God. So we were worshiping, and I was holding her from the back, and we were singing, and I just started feeling her trembling, and started crying and shaking. And I was like, this is God. This is when God shows up. You cannot deny it. When you feel that feeling, when you feel God's presence, it is, you can never, dismiss God. And, when you've experienced that, and it was the most beautiful thing ever. That night, she obviously gave her life to Jesus. She got saved. She did the altar call. And then it's just we started thinking deeper of our relationship. Obviously I started feeling a little bit more secure in who I was. And now I'm, obviously, got this woman of Christ by my side. And a few weeks later, we got involved in another obviously overseas pastor that came to the DCC after the church burned down. They had the tent there, and Clayton Jennings came in. Now Clayton Jennings saved me through a hectic time. His messages about Jesus and God and stuff like that. When all my single days and all my hurtful days, I listened to that man, and that man was, then he was like, my ultimate when it comes to pastors. Anyway, so I had to take Rachel to him. And that is the first time in my life I understood the devil's attacks. Now, my entire life, and I'm thinking about it, to be honest, my entire life, I only considered God in this equation. I only considered God being a God that blesses when I'm good, and I only considered God being the one that punishes me when I'm bad. So I better be good, you know what I'm saying? And, you know, I never sat well and I never understood it, but no one ever told me and made me understand spiritual warfare. No one ever told me and made me understand about how the devil attacks your life. No one ever told me that sin is the door for the devil, and it's not God punishing you. Okay, God hates sin. God doesn't hate the person that sins. God hates sin because sin separates us from God, and when we sin, it opens the door for the devil to work in our life. And when you understand that, your existence is going to change. Your perspective of Jesus and God is going to change. We walked into that tent and she got attacked. And there's no doubt in my mind that the devil attacked her walking in this, because he knew the purpose she had on her life. She walked into that tent and she couldn't start breathing. She started rashing all over her face, all over her neck, started hyperventilating. I've never experienced something like that in my life. You know, thank goodness the church wasn't full. We took her to the back, we prayed over her, we obviously rebuked it, kind of like, thank goodness I understood kind of like what was happening. I didn't just think she was having an illness or a fit or anything like that. Something freaky was happening, and I knew it was a spiritual attack. Something in me just knew it was. And we prayed it out, and you know, it left the body eventually. And you know, Clayton came and he preached, and it was, you know, amazing. And I rededicated my life that night with Rachel, and we went up and did the altar call, and you know, things changed after that, man. Things really changed. We looked at this whole thing and through very different eyes. You know, a few days or, you know, a few weeks later or whatever the case may be, you know, Rachel and I had a discussion, and we were like our whole life we've been in relationships and sex was the priority. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you get angry, you have sex, you make up, you carry on. You know, if you want to, you know, show love to someone, you have sex, and that's it. But I think I was in a point in my life where I was like, that isn't, you know, that it can't just be that. You know what I'm saying? I think when she got saved, I felt this responsibility as the man in the relationship, as the leader in this relationship, that I need to look after this woman. I need to take care of her. And I mean, like, this isn't respectful, this isn't godly, even though I didn't know the dynamics of it. And trust me, it took us a year and a half, you know, from making this decision to even figure out, you know, closely how it should work or whatever the case may be. And we've had struggles through this, trust me, and we weren't perfect with this in the beginning in any means, but we made the decision to abstain from sex. This was probably like 6 months into our relationship. We had broken ties with most people that were kind of like those influences in our lives. You know, we kind of like experienced God on so many levels. You know, obviously my brother was, you know, mentoring me and, you know, just showing me God's love on so many levels always throughout my life. So I can just thank him for everything he's done, even though I've been so blinded to every single phase where he was trying to just, you know, kind of like lead me. You know, I was blinded, and he never gave up, and I'm so grateful. And then, what's in it? And then, you know, obviously we made that decision, and we just like, you know, we need to do this for us. I want to get married. Like, I'm not just dating Rachel because I want to date her. Like, I need to know that you are the woman that every single woman I've been with has, you know, obviously not been the one. My heart has been broken. You know, I've been on all of these messed up, obviously, in between relationships, toxic relationships, and then obviously just relationships that had no point really. And then, you know, I want to get married. You know what I'm saying? Like, let's do this right. And you know, I just, even though I didn't really know why we were doing this, I think deep down inside of us, we were still being like, Rachel started competing, and, you know, I don't think we started it for the right reasons. We were more just doing it for like, oh, you know, okay, I know I need to honor her. I know this is godly. I know this is the right thing to do. I know there's a missing link. I know I want to find my wife. But also, you know, maybe if we abstain and, you know, we don't, this is kind of like a sacrifice, and God is going to bless us, and Rachel's going to win her shows. Like, in the back of our mind, we never said that, but I think we both kind of like believed it on a level. And, you know, once again, completely silly way to obviously think about how God works and how his blessings works and his love works and stuff like that. Anyway, so we made that vow, and we slipped up a few times in the first year, but I mean, it's been, you know, three and a half years, well, almost 3.5 years since and we've, abstained, and we've grown so much closer. The connection, the spiritual growth, the spiritual connection, knowing that she's there. And I mean, I went through the worst phase of my life. After that, my brother got sick, and both his kidneys obviously gave in, and obviously he was very, very sick, and there was very big demand financially from everyone to obviously through this period. I think I went through a phase where, and I've actually never spoken to anyone about this, and when I was thinking about my testimony, I was thinking about like what happened in my life where that switch happened. I was in shape, I was fit, I was training, and something happened when my brother got sick, and I just think I had this overwhelming responsibility over my life, because I was the businessman, I was doing well, he got sick, they had to sell everything, they were obviously not on medical aid, obviously they needed money, and I took this burden, and I was like, I need to provide. I need to be this person that obviously makes money. I want to get them out of debt. I want to be that person, what I'm saying? Not putting it on God. I felt that I needed to do that because that was my responsibility. I felt God strongly tell me to move away from my pop-ups and my very successful obviously means of business, and open up a new obviously franchise, a new obviously venue. And I did this, and I wrestled with this because I was like, this, I'm going to spend all of my savings doing this. It's going to be everything that I have goes into this. And I did it, and it didn't work out. And I felt like such a failure, because for a whole year, my other business was carrying this business. It like emptied our finances. I wasn't able to be that support for my brother. What I'm saying? Obviously, I helped here and there, but his wife was the crutch. She carried them financially through everything. I felt like such a failure, because I was supposed to be this brother that was going to, save the day, the successful person, obviously, create this, new venue. God led me to it, and I know God led me to it. But everything failed, the business failed. I wasn't making money. It was such an expensive rent. It was just killing us. All of our profits, just went. All of my savings went. Everything, went into that, and trying to carry that. On the surface, people thought it was all successful. It was all great. And, obviously, thank God, obviously my brother's wife, did what she needed to do, and, provided, and they came through it. But then God blessed us. God gave me a kind of like a dream that, I would be able to give him a kidney. I watched this episode. I never watched Carte Blanche, and I was at my parents' house. We had to stay with my parents for a few months because we couldn't afford to live in the places, because we made such crazy mistakes with property and stuff like that. And it was paying like 25,000 rent for like a mansion in in Kloof for a period of time. Such silly, stupid mistakes, ignorant things that we went through our lives, and just these are all things that we'll talk about. And then I got this, obviously dream that I was be able to gonna save my brother, and I just had this feeling in my heart. And for some reason, we were staying in my parents' house, obviously, because we were going through a little bit of an issue. And I watched Carte Blanche. I never watched Carte Blanche, and it was about kidney transplants, and that was my confirmation. Like, since that day, I knew, even though there was no test done, there was no obviously talks about doing a kidney transplant, there was nothing. I knew in my heart that God meant me to obviously help save my brother's life. And months went past, and my brother got worse and worse and worse. And if anyone saw my brother, obviously where he was at throughout, it was a very, very, very scary time. And thank God for Annie, and obviously her love and her dedication and devotion. Unbelievable woman, what she did for my brother. And I just knew, and for some reason, the blessing came that my brother was able to do an op. We now needed to find a donor, and even though we were looking for people and stuff like that, and not really knowing, I knew in my heart it would be me. And came down to it, I was a perfect match, 100%. I wasn't in any way, shape, or form healthy. When I heard my brother was sick, when I put all that financial pressure on myself, I'd stopped going to gym. My whole life was making money, and I was failing, and I was sitting in this, feeling of failure all the time because I wasn't good enough. And, once again, that's just where the enemy wants you. But, God showed this hope. God, came with this obviously blessing. And, we were able to do the operation. Throughout our entire testing period for the kidneys, the doctors kept saying, you are perfectly healthy, perfectly healthy, perfectly healthy. And only Jesus makes something perfectly healthy, because I wasn't living a perfect, healthy life. I was not training. I was not eating healthy. I was overweight. There was no reason for me to be perfectly healthy except for Jesus's love and his grace. So this was all divine, and this was all meant to be. And my brother and I had our kidney transplant, and he made a full recovery. Thank you, Jesus. He is completely healed, completely healthy, made a full recovery. And but then going back, obviously, just to before we did the actual op, we were at a very, very, very bad place financially, at literally my wits' ends. And obviously I was battling with God with regards to everything that is happening, and the situation that we're in, even though obviously all the good and the blessing that's happening. Anyways, that just before the operation happened, we got obviously a message that we got an opportunity to move locations from our second we're franchise location to a 220 million rand building to obviously run a gym in there and run our business in there practically free. And that's kind of like shifted everything for us financially. 2019 we had a phenomenal year. We were able to rebuild, we were able to do amazing things, travel, and just rebuild our lives, and kind of like God just restored everything in that season, and we're so grateful. And then at the end of last year, believe it or not, we had a huge, how can I say, event happen that kind of like cost us the opportunity. Kind of almost like the opportunity got stolen from us, and we lost the venue, and we lost the opportunity, and lost all of my clients, and lost hundreds of thousands of rands of investments, and obviously future investments. And that's kind of like how we ended off the year last year. But I'm so grateful, because in that situation God granted me complete rest, complete the gift of forgiveness. And I where my future self would have looked and been in that situation, and been vindictive and resentful, and wanted to eye for an eye kind of like situation. I was completely I had the full revelation of what spiritual warfare was all about. And that was a turning point in my life, and we moved on from that. And obviously 2020 started, and we started in a good place. We had peace even in the midst of that adversity, of that very, very dark place yet again in our lives, regardless of the mountains we faced starting this new year. And Rachel and I just started this new year on a fresh foot. Something just triggered in me. I got my motivation back, I got my drive back, I got my passion back, I got my kind of like motivation for my own health back, and been on my own fat loss journey, and I've lost 14 kgs now since mid-Jan. Rachel and I are doing great. Obviously spiritually we have never been more connected. We was hit with obviously this whole COVID thing, and obviously once again massive mountains in front of us, financial mountains in front of us, because owning a gym, obviously having to pay expenses, having to lose so many clients, and this uncertainty of things moving forward. But even though all of this craziness is happening around us right now, I can honestly say I have never been so filled with peace and contentment, and I've never been so close to God and trusted his plan, because I realize that he has never forsaken us. He has never left us alone, or failed us in any single scenario throughout my entire life, no matter how many times we got attacked by evil. And that's what it is. understanding that all of those negative times, all of those obviously struggles, all of those obviously traumatic events in your life was the enemy moving in your life. It was not from God. It was not punishment. It was not God's doing. Okay? And that truth is going to set you free. Your shame, your guilt, your feeling of worthlessness, your feeling of being condemned all the time and feeling that you're not deserving. That is the enemy's emotions in your life, and that's where he wants you. That's where he wants to obviously keep you. But the truth is, that you're made pure, that you're made righteous, that you're a new creation in Jesus Christ, in the blood of Jesus Christ on the cross. And if you believe that, you confess that, and you obviously turn from your sin and you repent and you let Jesus into your life, your whole existence will change. Yes, you're not going to obviously have a great, easy, perfect life, moving forward. You're still going to be attacked. We are still of sin. We're still going to struggle. But I promise you, there's no price on earth worth this feeling of peace. Even when I had far more money in my life, I had a void. I had an emptiness. I was seeking. I needed something of this world to fill me. Now having less, I have so much more inside of me because I realize at rock bottom that God is that rock at the bottom. He is that foundation. He is your provider. He is your source. It was all His to begin with. He will bring us through. He will carry us. He will protect us through this. We need to submit. We need to give everything to Him. We need to give our time to Him. We need to give our energy to Him. We need to give our attention. We need to seek Him more than we seek anything else. We need to die to our old self and be made new in Jesus' name. And that's kind of like what I want to obviously talk about in this whole series, finding this peace, finding this state of contentment. Obviously the love, the connection, the beauty that Rachel and I found in our relationship, obviously, choosing to abstain, the decisions I made throughout my life, obviously, in summary, going through my, beginning years, not having a relationship with God, growing up and thinking God is a vindictive God. He's going to punish us. If we do bad things, we're going to get punished. If we do good things, we're going to get blessed. Completely not having God in my life, then falling in deep with my sin, and then God saving me out of my addictions, out of that pit I was in, out of my rock bottom, and then just always showing up, always wanting, always calling me, no matter how many times I wanted to move away, no matter how blinded I was, and just fell for the enemy's obviously plan. He always reached out for me. He was always good. He never forsake me. He was always there to pick me up. He always had people sending them into my life, obviously, having that compassion, and that never gave up. So I want to take you through this journey. I want you to see what I've learned. I want you to experience it. I want you, because I know there are people struggling. I know there are people seeking the truth, and the world is just filled with so many things pulling us in different directions. False idols, and just we need to disconnect from this world, and we need to connect with God. This world is perverse. The enemy is a liar. He is a manipulator, and he wants you to believe that he doesn't exist. So many of us are trapped in that mindset of there's a God, but he's a bad God. He's a vindictive God. He's a God that's going to punish you, and that's what the enemy wants. He wants you to think that God hurt you, that God brings all this pain and this trauma and all of these obviously negative things into this world, so that you can blame God, so that you can doubt His existence, so that you can just turn your back on Him, so that He can have you in His power, so the enemy can have rule over your life, and that you don't even give a second thought of your sin and how that disconnects you from God, and how that allows Him to obviously have dominion in your life. And I want to show you this truth. I want to show you that it's taken me 35 years of my life to learn the difference between spiritual warfare and, God's heart and the enemy's intention, the danger of sin within a relationship, and, what we do every single day, and, how Jesus can wipe that debt clean, that we are forgiven, that we are made pure, that we are made righteous. But we got to step into that truth. We've got to take, obviously, and die to our old self and give our lives to Jesus. And it doesn't mean we're going to be perfect. We are still going to fall short. We live in a fallen world, and that is why there's sin in this world. But that is the enemy's plan, and we have to be aware. We have to be conscious. We have to purposefully live, in the opposite direction of that, so that we can draw closer to God, so we can live in His promises. You know what I'm saying? John 10:10, it says that the enemy has come to kill, steal, and destroy, and God has come to give you life and life abundantly. And that is His heart. That is what He wants for your life. He wants to bless you. He wants you to live in His promises. And He wants to, obviously, draw you in. And He wants to show you love like never before. No matter your past, no matter your experiences, no matter what you did last night, no matter your, things that you can't even, want anyone to know. I don't want anyone to know these things about me. You know what I'm saying? Like, these are things that I've never even told the people that I'm closest to in my life. But I've got nothing in me that is shameful. I've got nothing in me that, regrets doing this, because at the end of the day, Jesus has called me to do this, and I know He's going to glorify me through this, and I know this is going to help someone, pull them out of their own kind of like disbelief, and, kind of like, this mess that you're in at the moment, and you can't get out of it, and you feel lost, and you feel worthless, and you're longing for something. You've got an empty void. No matter what you do, no matter how many people you hook up with, no matter how much drugs and alcohol you take on the weekend, no matter how many people you obviously betray, or how much money you make and how much you succeed, you always have this sorrow. You always have this empty space inside of you. That empty space can only be filled with Jesus Christ, and that is what I want to show you guys. All right, guys, thank you for obviously bearing with me for so long. This was meant to be a 15-minute video. I think this is probably an hour video. Forgive me if I left out things. I don't even know if this served the right purpose. There's so many things I feel like I missed out, the point, the purpose, kind of like the whole, everything that is meant to be said in a testimony. I don't know if I did it right. I don't know if it was successful, but that was my heart. I didn't even go on my papers. I didn't even follow the script. But I hope this is, obviously just something that is going to make someone just ask a question, or just keep watching, and, obviously just be curious and just seek for that truth, and just open your heart. And if there's anything that you go away with today that I want you to understand, is God's heart, the enemy's intention, spiritual warfare, everything that has negatively happened in this world, to creation, to mankind, to your friend, your family, your obviously your loved ones, everything traumatic that has happened in your life, it was not sent from God. It was not God's doing. He is not here to hurt you. He's not here to punish you. That is the enemy. That is the enemy working in your life, and obviously distancing you from God, distracting you from God's love, making you doubt God, making you turn your back from God, so that you can always be in this void, in this pit, in this mess. God wants you to just understand His heart. God just wants to love you, and through Jesus, this is possible. And I want to tell you the story. I want you to understand this whole concept, and everything that I was so blinded with, and everything that I'm now working on. And even though my life has not been, just up road. It might seem differently from the outside. I've got no clue how people perceive my life, but it's been up. It's been rock bottom. It's been up again. I've been very wealthy. I've been completely broke. I've been empty. But at the moment, rebuilding my life, I have never felt so much peace among so much negativity and adversity in my life. And I pray this peace, this contentment on anyone, because this is where we need to be. And I know this with all of my heart. If we stay near and dear to God, if we give Him our time, if we give Him our energy, if we focus on Him, if we stay obedient to Him and His word and His principles, He will bless us without sorrow, and He will carry us through, and He will give us a life, and a life of abundance. All right, guys, hope you guys enjoyed. I'll catch you guys later. I'll start working on, obviously those different topics of the series. But yeah, let this journey begin. Let me know what you guys thought. If you want to DM me any questions, if this related to you in any way, shape, or form, please reach out. I would love nothing more than feedback and to hear your story and to start the conversation with you. All right, so we're going to get it started. What I've come to know about Jesus. Thank you so much for watching. God bless.